Lamar Jackson is second all-time in a single-season QBR. We'll talk about exactly what he needs in this final game to break the all-time record. We also got some schedule changes and a lot of playoff updates to go over. We'll take a look at the Ravens' expected comp picks next season, all that and more in today's episode of the Flock Rundown.
Ravens Flock. Flock Rundown is the place to be.
Motionless brainwaves attempt to swim their way to sense, can't tame the untamed.
Appreciate you, Ray. What's up, Ravens fans? My name is Ryan, and welcome back to another episode of the Flock Rundown. Final week of the regular season is upon us, and there's been some schedule changes. The Ravens, the entire AFC North actually, now plays on Saturday. They're the only two games on Saturday. We got Ravens-Browns in Baltimore at 4:30 Eastern, and then we got Bengals, Steelers, prime time, 8 o'clock. Now, if the Ravens beat the Browns, they win the AFC North. They are the third seed, and the Steelers game for the Steelers becomes irrelevant. The Bengals need to win that game, and they also need the Broncos and the Dolphins to lose. So the Bengals are still on the fringe or in the hunt trying to get in the playoffs, but they need some help. So that game is big for the Bengals, but it becomes irrelevant for the Steelers. I saw Mike Tomlin today say that if the Ravens do win the game, there could be some thought into just not playing anybody for Pittsburgh or not playing a lot of key guys. So it's interesting that we're playing on a different day again. We just played on Wednesday on Christmas, and then we didn't play this past weekend, and now we got another Saturday game. The playoffs is the following week. We could definitely play on Saturday again. The Ravens have been playing on some wild days, but doesn't matter. You know, we're rolling. We got a lot of momentum right now. The defense is playing better than ever. Let's take a look at these ratings from this defense since week 11. This is extremely impressive, especially if you've been along this ride since the beginning of the season and really tuned in. You know that the Ravens defense was ranked in the back half of the league, especially their pass defense. It was dead last for 8, 9, 10 weeks through this season. And now look at the numbers since week 11. We're second in points per game allowed, first in yards per game allowed, first in opponents' third down percentage, second in sacks, first in opposing teams' passer rating. I mean, that's absurd, man. What a turnaround. This isn't the numbers for our entire season because, like I said, half the season we were terrible on defense. So now we're kind of, coming back to middle of the road. But since week 11, which it doesn't really matter what the overall season stats are, it matters how you're playing right now or how you've been playing recently. And since week 11, we got a top 3 defense in the NFL paired with a top 2 offense, and I don't think we're 2. So this is about as good as we could ask for, man. The Ravens are playing their best ball at the perfect time. Now, we did have a little bit of a long break here, but I think there's just way too much on the line for the Ravens to not go and ball out on Saturday at home, to secure the AFC North, to secure another home playoff game the following week. So we got a home game this Saturday, and then we're going to be hosting another home game next Saturday or Sunday after that. Now, let's just say we beat the Browns and maybe the Steelers rest their starters and they get beat by the Bengals and then the Chargers win. We would play Pittsburgh that following week. So most likely we're going to play the Chargers or the Steelers. I guess we could still play the Texans if we end up losing the division and have to play the 4th seed, but I'm just assuming that we're going to beat the Browns. We're going to win the AFC North. It's looking like we're playing the Chargers or Steelers, whoever gets that 6th seed. Buffalo's going to play the 7th seed, and that's most likely going to be the Broncos or the Dolphins or the Bengals, just depending on who gets in that final spot. And then the 3 seed, which would be the Ravens, is going to play the 6 seed. Right now, that's the Chargers, but they have the same record as the Steelers. And if the Steelers rest their players and lose that game, we definitely could just see another rematch against Pittsburgh the following week, which I'm for. Let's bring it on. Whoever it is, let's bring it on. I mean, that has to be the mentality, right? We can't be sitting here like, oh no, we got a tough road. We do have a tough road. We're not going to have as easy of a road as Kansas City is going to have because they're going to have a bye, and then they're going to play the worst remaining seed, which is going to be Houston or one of the wild card teams. They're not going to play Buffalo or Baltimore. Buffalo and Baltimore are most likely headed towards a second round divisional matchup if we get there. So it is not going to be an easy road. The Ravens' most likely scenario through this playoff path is Chargers Steelers first round in Baltimore. We win that game. We're going to Buffalo most likely as long as they win their first round game, which I imagine they will. So the Ravens are going to have to play the divisional round, which we've been there before, 13-3 if anybody remembers that game. And we're going to have to go to Buffalo in the divisional round and then most likely have to go to Kansas City for the AFC Championship. So this is not an easy road, but it feels eerily similar to the Ravens' 2012 Super Bowl run, man. Do you guys remember the year before that? We went to the AFC Championship. We lost in heartbreaking fashion with a shanked Billy Cundiff field goal. And then the following year, we come back. We didn't have a great season, to be honest with you. We get in a wild card spot. This one, we're probably going to win the division, but regardless, we're not the favorite right now. Everyone's looking at the Chiefs. Back then, it was the Patriots or the Broncos with Peyton Manning. And the Ravens had the hardest road possible. We started against the Colts in a home playoff game, Ray Lewis's last home game. And then we had to go on the road to the Peyton Manning-led, ridiculously, insanely talented Broncos offense that put up 50 touchdowns. And we went to double overtime, the Hail Flacco. We end up beating them on the road. Then we got to go back to New England. It just feels like this type of road where the Ravens are going to have to go to Buffalo in the divisional round, play a hot Bills offense with Josh Allen. They're then going to have to go to Kansas City on the road and beat Mahomes, and stop the three-peat, stop Brady from going to the Super Bowl almost. I'm not saying Mahomes is Brady. I'm just trying to compare the years. And then the Super Bowl is also in New Orleans. So if you guys don't remember, the Super Bowl was in New Orleans in 2012 when we won. So a lot of things lining up, kind of similar scenarios, and hopefully we go on that magical run again and get us a Lombardi. Let's move on to some Lamar Jackson. He has a chance this Saturday to set the best single-season QBR in the history of football. Right now, he is second only to Aaron Rodgers, who in 2011 had a 122.5 passer rating. Lamar Jackson, right now as we stand, has a 121.6 passer rating. So I ran the numbers, and Lamar needs a 135 passer rating or higher. I think it could actually be like a 134.8 or 0.9 as well to beat Aaron Rodgers, but I just said 135 because it's the closest whole number. But he needs 135 or higher to set this record. He would then pass Aaron Rodgers and set the single season all-time QBR record. And Lamar has had a 135 passer rating in 7 different games this season. So this is not a big task. This is not an insane feat here, and you only need 10 attempts to register the passer rating. So it's not like Lamar couldn't go 12 for 14 and we're up, a couple scores on the Browns and we end up sitting some guys in the fourth and Lamar gets his passer rating. I don't even know if they're looking at this. They probably don't care. I'm sure there's some stat guys in the building who are aware of this, but I haven't seen a lot of talk about it. But this is kind of a big deal. I mean, at least to me, I think setting the single season all-time QBR rating, that means you had the best passer rating in the history of football. And look at that list. I mean, there's some incredible quarterbacks with some incredible seasons. And Lamar Jackson is very close to having the best quarterback season, at least in a passer rating standpoint, ever. Does this lead him to another MVP? I don't know. There's been a lot of chatter about the MVP recently. I started talking about this thing like 2 weeks ago. I was like, the betting odds are ridiculous. This is crazy. Like, everyone should funnel their money to Lamar on a bet because you're going to make 10x your money or 7x your money. I mean, the betting odds were ridiculous. Now they've shrunk, gotten a lot closer. The narrative's starting to flip because Lamar's won some big games, and I think people are looking at the numbers. And I know it's not an only stat-driven award. I'm very aware of that. Lamar Jackson last year did not have the best stats, not even close when it comes to his career. But it was a down year overall, and the Ravens had the best record in the league. This year, it's not a down year. There's a lot of people putting up some crazy numbers. Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, they're putting up ridiculous numbers. Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry. So there's more names in this bucket, and it's not just about record, in my opinion. The record does matter. The Bills are the 2 seed. I totally get it. They have a 2-game better record than the Ravens right now. Very aware of that. But I hear an argument about how big their wins have been, and I totally understand that they beat the Chiefs, and I think that probably holds the most weight, They beat the Chiefs and the Lions, but the Lions have been decimated on defense. I mean, is that the full strength Lions. I don't know. I don't know about that one. But if you look at the Ravens' gauntlet of a schedule this year, they've beaten the entire AFC playoff field except the Chiefs. I mean, so 1 seed's the Chiefs. We lost to them. The 2 seed is the Bills and Josh Allen. We beat 35-10. The 3 seed most likely will be us. The 4th seed was the Texans. We just beat them 31-2. The 5th seed's the Steelers. We split with them this year, but we recently just blew them out. And then the 6th seed's the Chargers, went into LA on Monday night, beat them. The 7th seed's the Broncos. Do I even have to bring that score up? Like 40-10. We demolished the Broncos. If the Bengals end up getting in, we swept the Bengals. I mean, the Ravens have beaten the entire AFC playoff field except the Chiefs. So do we just discount the entire gauntlet of a schedule that we've won? And just because we didn't beat the Chiefs and the Bills did, I don't know. It just sounds a little ridiculous to me. And then when you go and look at the numbers, it's just not even close. And Josh Allen might sit in this final week because they have nothing to play for. So you look at the numbers, I mean, we already talked about the passer rating. Lamar's on a historic passer rating pace here. You know, he might set the all-time passer rating, but passing touchdowns, 39-28. I know Josh Allen's got more rushing touchdowns, so you got to add up the total touchdowns. So it's really 40 for Josh Allen to Lamar's 43. But if Lamar plays another week here, he's going to increase that, you know, and have probably 45 plus touchdowns. And then look at the interceptions. Lamar's lower. Lamar has more rushing yards by 320 yards. Lamar Jackson has surpassed both of his other MVP seasons. I mean, this is like a standout year. You know, it's not just like, oh, it's so close, let's give it to Allen because it's just so close and he hasn't had one. Lamar Jackson is blowing his other MVP seasons out of the water. He's having one of the best quarterback seasons in the history of football. I mean, the passer rating needs to be addressed more. It's 121.6 right now to Josh Allen's 101.4. I mean, who's having a better quarterback year? I see a lot of other people are like, let's stop talking about the MVP. It doesn't even matter. Well, as a fan, you know, and a content creator too, it does matter because, like, we can talk about it, and I feel like it's rightfully deserved. I'm not being biased. I try to be as least biased as possible always, but, like, I'm not being biased in this situation. I genuinely feel like Lamar deserves this MVP, back-to-back MVPs, and it has nothing to do with the importance of a Super Bowl run. Obviously, we want to go win a Super Bowl. Obviously, that's the focus of the team. That's what matters most. But we're talking about the Ravens, and we're talking about this team. And when you look at it, it's hard to ignore that Lamar Jackson is deserving of a 3rd MVP, and the narrative out there is not really saying that always. You know, there's a lot of guys on TV, a lot of people with votes in the media that are kind of still leaning Allen, and I just really don't see how. I don't even see at this point. You know, a few weeks ago, I thought it was like dead even though the voting odds were lopsided towards Allen. I really thought it was dead even, like 50-50 at that point. And now, to me, Lamar should definitely win this MVP. He'd have to go out and lose to the Browns and have an awful game for me to not think that. I really don't see a way that Lamar Jackson doesn't win his 3rd MVP. But let's move on to some comp picks. We got some updated comp picks. Shout out to Nick Court for putting this out. But the current projected comp picks for the Ravens next year going to be a 4th round pick for Patrick Queen, a 5th or 6th for Geno Stone. It's on the line there, so we don't really know. It's going to be close. And then a 6th for John Simpson and a 6th for Kevin Zeitler. So the Ravens are looking at 4 more comp picks. They would have had another 5th round, but Henry has earned basically every possible incentive that he could have, and it has bumped his contract into the 5th round category, which nullifies Jadeveon Clowney's 5th round pick, but not a big deal. I mean, the Ravens are going to take Derrick Henry's production. You know, they don't care that they had to pay him all his incentives, I don't think. I mean, he's a big piece of why this offense is succeeding so much. So is Lamar Jackson, obviously, but let's not negate the impact of Derrick Henry. He's making Lamar Jackson's life a lot easier, you know, and that doesn't mean he's not deserving of an MVP because of it. I'm just saying Lamar Jackson's stats are so crazy because it gets a little bit easier. The field opens up a bit more when teams are constantly stacking the box to try and deal with Derrick Henry. So Derrick Henry's season has had a massive impact, and I don't think, we get a 6th-round pick instead of a 5th-round comp pick. That's well worth it, trust me. And it's worth to bring Derrick Henry back, too. That's a conversation for this offseason, most likely. But we need to bring Derrick Henry back. This guy is not done, and we have him for another year, but he's on a $10 million cap hit. It does go up from this year, so a lot of people thought it was a one-year deal. We were just going to play him this year, cut him, move on, and save money, but I don't think we should do that. I think there should be a 1-year extension, and we could spread that $10 million out a little bit if we need to and keep Derrick Henry here for the rest of his career, or at least until we start to see a major decline, but that's not happening right now. I mean, look, Derrick Henry looks like Derrick Henry, and the stats show it. The eye test shows it when you're watching the game, and I don't expect him to just suck next year. And if we take Derrick Henry off our team, the Ravens offense is a much different offense next year without Derrick Henry. So we have to bring him back another year. I think we got to run this back. We got a great defensive core. We got a great offensive core. This team is built to compete for a long time, and we need to make sure that we just keep maximizing each window to try and get as many Super Bowls as we possibly can. But that's it for today, guys. I just wanted to come on here and go through a lot of updates that are going on with the scheduling and the playoffs, and kind of just show where we stand and what's on the table for this Saturday, Lamar Jackson's all-time QBR rating. But I appreciate you guys, as always, for tuning in to another episode of the Flock Rundown. Have a beautiful rest of your day, and I'll let the greatest linebacker in the history of the game take us out.
Ravens Flock. Flock Rundown is the place to be. My man Ryan has been a lifelong Ravens fan since he was born. The Flock Rundown. Nothing gets better than waking up and wondering how high we can fly. Tune in.
Motionless brainwaves attempt to swim their way to sense, can't tame the untamed.